Good morning, everyone. Ginette Biro here. I'm a medium and a channeler. And I had another beautiful question come in, and I have to say, keep them coming because I love this interaction. So keep the questions coming. The question was about ascension and the change in frequency that happens and how we can adjust to that in social situations or with our families. And so what I mean by that is when we go into or experience an awakening of sorts, many different levels of that and many opportunities to experience that. When we go through that, essentially what happens is it changes our frequency. And that's the bottom line. And the reason why that's really important is because that helps us understand why when we have an awakening and our frequency changes, the way in which we feel we interact with other people also changes. And the reason why that is we will have a certain frequency, and when it comes across another frequency that it can harmonize with, there is peace and joy and ease. When it comes across a frequency that it can't harmonize with, it can't quite fit, or they're so far off, it makes it really hard to connect. And so that's why sometimes when people go through an awakening, not just are they changing in their thought patterns and their mental landscape and all of that, but their energetics are changing so that just even the frequency pairings between two people can create a weird disharmony. Now, that doesn't have to be negative. It just takes awareness to recognize what's going on. And so when you do recognize that, what you can do is just acknowledge the fact for yourself that your frequency is changing. There is no right or wrong. Your frequency is not better or worse than somebody else's, just as theirs isn't better or worse than yours. It's just different. And when we recognize that, we can kind of step back a little bit and recognize the changes that are taking place. Now, the other thing too is to remember that as you're awakening, your thought patterns are opening and changing too. And not everybody is where you are at, because one of the simplest things that I've done myself repeatedly is thought, how would I have felt about this piece of information even a year ago? Would I have been able to accept it? Most of the time, the answer would be no, not in the way in which I do now. So I couldn't expect somebody else to be where I am now if they just simply are not. It's just about progressions, right? So it's kind of like when we walk into that situation with family, recognize, first of all, your frequency will be different, but that is okay. Your frequency could potentially trigger their frequencies to open up over time. Second is your thought pattern may be different from their thoughts, but that's also okay. You don't have to change yours to match theirs, and they don't have to change theirs to match yours. It's a beautiful practice of having compassion and meeting people where they're at. And so one of the things that you can do is model that behavior of not needing to feel you need to change them or be frustrated by it, but simply meet them where they're at. If somebody wants to talk about the weather and in that moment that's your best option and that brings the most harmony and that's what you choose is to follow harmony, then talk about the weather. Maybe you'll learn something really beautiful. Maybe they'll teach you about cumulus clouds or something, right? There's many ways we can take the awareness we have, expand it a little bit, and then make the best of that situation. Now, the last thing I want to say too with ascension and change like that is sometimes there's a shifting in frequencies that has to happen in friends and family as you kind of change and grow, which does essentially happen several times throughout our lives. But allow space for that. Allow space for you to have room to shift and change and become the new version of you. We're not meant to stay stagnant as we grow and expand and change. We're meant to essentially change energetic form as we grow up, as we gain more wisdom. So it's a natural progression to do that. We don't have to stay the same. But what can essentially stay the same is our centeredness, our compassion, and our desire to meet everyone from a place of love and understanding while still having firm boundaries if need be. So I hope that helps a little bit. Again, the root of it is a change in frequency. And when you recognize that, then you can find ways to harmonize or find ways to see how long you can handle the difference in frequency. If it's a 5-minute interaction or a 2-hour interaction and then you need a break, there's many different ways. So essentially, notice what you notice, get curious about the things that are happening around you and see what you need to do to be able to manage that frequency, that interaction with more harmony. So I hope that helps. Again, keep the questions coming, and definitely check out avalonspirit.com for more.